on here. Yeah, so the biggest difference I see with below average and above average, offices and organizations is that below average typically collect whatever happens, like they're collectors, and the best organizations, and I learned this early on, are creators. Okay, so my first 3 years as a district manager, I was a collector, right? Not on purpose. I wasn't like, I'm gonna collect, like I thought I was doing my job right. I was like, I answer the phone when people call me for PDI, I show up for my interviews, like I run training, like I do PCs, like I was doing the right things, right? And I knew that, but I didn't understand the concept. And it wasn't until I went to cross training after my second year, right? So I was open 04, 05. It was in the end of 05. It was actually Halloween weekend when I went to cross train. And so 2006, I started implementing some of that stuff and I got pretty good at it. And I feel like I really mastered that in 07. And by the way, in 07, my office was #1 in the country. We were Silver Cup champs that year. Okay. And I don't say that to brag, but I'm just saying it's something I learned, right? Like I didn't know this at first. And so those first years, it was a learning process. And so for a lot of managers that you guys see and work with and have worked, coached with, like some have never learned this. Okay. And by the way, some never do. And I've worked with managers and coached and trained top district managers and people who are now division managers who, when they came to train with me, the #1 takeaway was like, oh my gosh, you create so much. And I feel like I just, I handle what's given to me. I handle what comes well, but I'm not good at creating. Okay. By the way, whose iPhone? Who just jumped on?
That's Michael. He joins from his phone.
Okay. All right. I'm going to mute him. Awesome. I just want to know who we have. Olivia, I'm going to move you with Steph so you guys can work, and I'm going to close the room in 45 minutes when we dive into recruiting stuff. Okay. So let me see here, Miss Olivia. All right. All right, cool. Go ahead and join that. So all these managers, and it was Ryan Casey who actually had shared a sheet with me. And I think Abby, you guys might have seen it last year. I think I posted it like in the group me. I need to find it, but it was a sheet that he shared with me, and he dove in more beyond the sheet. But I remember him showing me this, and he's like, look, this is, collecting versus creating, like this is the difference. And he's the one that first told me, he's like, this is the difference. I said, what makes the great people so great, right? Like I was like trying to get good at this. I was really sucking my first 2 years as a manager. I'm like, man, I'm not good at this, And when I went to cross train with him, I remember asking, like, what is it that makes great managers great? And that was, I just found it. And he said, this is a sheet that I got in 2005, collecting versus creating CPO. And when he shared this, and I'm gonna put this in our group right now. Actually, I'm gonna put it in the group for everybody because I'll reference it tonight in GCLA. But this was something that he shared, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize that, right? And if you look at the first one says getting up when you have something you have to do, right? Like for me as a new manager, I'm like, I have a PC, I got to get up, right? I have a thing on campus, I got to get up. And so that was how I was running my business, right? Which is pretty normal for most people. I didn't know any different, but he said, when you're creating, you get up every day, finding something productive to do, finding a way to create more and generate more for your organization, right? The second, waiting for college, kids to call us. And he's like, or you go out there. And he taught me how to go out and campus recruit and hand out flyers. I went with him, to schools in Fullerton, California, and helped him with it. And I got really good at that, right? The third one, taking what comes with recruiting, I feel like this is we'll talk about this when the recruiting team comes with us here. We'll talk about that. But talking to your reps whenever they call, making an effort to contact reps, like all these things. And so I'm not going to go through all of them, but we're going to talk about different aspects. But I just want you guys to think about as you look at this list of things, and you're like, you know, ineffective or taking reports. My manager used to call me a report taker all the time. You know, he's like, you're doing, I'm like, oh, I did PDI. He's like, oh, what did we create? How many demos did we get? How many more? And I'm like, well, I mean, I got their schedule, or I got this, or I got their updates. He's like, you're a report taker right now. He's like, you don't want to take reports, you want to create activity. He's like, so yes, you are getting report, you know, you're getting basic stats and stuff, but it's in an attempt and a focus to help create more. Okay. So that's a really big difference. And he's like, so at the beginning of the week, you want to collect their schedule, you want to plan their schedule, get their goals, put it in, you know, web PDI, right? Because then during the week, now you can really use your PDI to create activity. And it's like, hey, I know you wanted 4 for tomorrow. How are you looking so far? I only see 1 in the system right now. Did you book any more? And they're like, oh no, I haven't yet. I'm like, okay, cool. Hey, what was your plan to get that done? You know, and that accountability and creating action, and like, when are we making calls, or when do you think would be the next time that you're able to do that? And helping guide those conversations really makes a big difference in what's happening. Okay, so that's a big factor. And so I think about, you know, right now where we're at and what we need to do in our organization. You know, like the first thing I thought of was like, we need to evaluate. You know, what are the different, like, let's look at the different parts of our business. Where do we feel things are going well? Where do we feel that we can be doing better, right? And I would start with recruiting, but I want to look at that with a recruiting team. So I'm going to go to like training, all right? So starting from training, like, what are things that you guys feel are going well in training? What are things that you feel could be going better in training? So Cass, this is mostly you, but Allison, Molly, anyone who's helping out with stuff, Abby, I'd love to know, like, what's like quickly, like, what do you feel like? I feel this is going really good in training. I feel like this could be better, or like, maybe we're not doing blank to create here. I'm not sure what to do here. So feedback.
Well, I feel like we do a really good job of splitting up who to meet with, but I feel like we probably should all get a review on like what needs to be focused on when we meet with people for like their PCs, because sometimes their first couple of appointments are not who they should be.
Mm-hmm.
We do a good job at doing the PCs, but it's just fixing the stuff that need to be fixed, and it's just little things sometimes that we miss.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And by the way, tonight we're going over that in GCLA. We're going to hit that hard, and like, you know, proper base pay management, because it's such a huge thing that creates pop, you know, like creates more productivity. And when there's more pop and productivity, guess what? Reps make paychecks, right? They like the job and they stick around longer. And so therefore that helps aid in retention. So it's kind of all tied in together. So we're going to hit that hard tonight. So awesome. What else do we feel is going good?
Can I add just one little thing to that?
Mhm.
Is like, yes, they sell. The other thing is they're more excited to introduce the job to other people as well. And I know I've had a couple people with some pushbacks of like, I don't want to give my Snap login, is something I've been getting from a couple people lately. And I know one of the biggest reasons is when they sell a lot, they have no problem introducing the job, or they feel comfortable with how the process works. They know that it's proven track record. Right now, we're not seeing a lot of exposure to that. So that's going to be a big thing, and GroupMe is going to be huge. That's what I just want, and we can talk about that later. But GroupMe, we got to have a better GroupMe culture from us internally to make sure people feel appreciated, whether they sold a trimmer. I don't care what they did. What can you highlight from each demo they did? Rex is the most important thing we want to be touching on. But sorry, I'm not going to hijack this portion. But
yeah, all right, Abby, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, like, something that's worked for me in the past, like with people kind of being cautious about Snapchat takeovers, is just like really reaffirming, like, I do not care about your Snapchat memories. I don't have the time or the need or the care to sit and go through like, oh my God, she went from training to a party. Oh my God, who did we hire? Just,
Yeah.
you know, like, I genuinely, you know, love you, a lot of respect for you, excited to work with you, but I do not care. And that's like worked for me.
Mhm.
Just,
Yeah, and you're
just
right,
be,
Abby.
like, cut
Some
and dry.
people, like, they feel like they don't want you to know like what the, you know, like this side of them. They're like going to show you this. And it's like giving you that gives you access to knowing like, I don't know, random dirty shit I do on the side or crazy stuff I do. Or so it's definitely a factor. And we'll talk about like there's different, and that's the thing too, is sometimes it's hard because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening, right? But there's different factors, right? There's comfortability with you, comfortability with the job, right? There's that comfort of like, hey, look, by the way, like when I talk to someone, I'm like, hey, you can do it yourself. I'm like, but honestly, you're gonna have a bunch of people immediately asking so many questions that you might not be ready to answer. And so a lot of our top people, I've just done it for them. And by the way, I've seen it all. I've seen, like, I'll tell them, like, I've seen dick pics. I've seen, you know, like profanity, like people are like, oh, hey, bitch, you know, all this stuff. I've seen this and that. I'm like, nothing phases me. I'm like, I am not going to judge you. I'm like, everybody has their drug dealer friends. Everybody has their like crazy, you know, alcoholic friends. Everyone has their like this, that, like, I know that. So I don't want to look at any of your shit. Be like, I'm just going to send the message, answer any questions people have, and then pass it back to you, you know? And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, I promise. I'm like, or we can sit here. And by the way, if they're going to do it themselves, this is a separate conversation, but since we're here, we'll just say it. If they want to do it themselves, guys, how we do it, and Spencer, you haven't been here for a while during the virtual worlds, is like, all right, cool, let's schedule a time so that you can screen share so that as people reply, you can show me and I can tell you what to say to them, you know? And so like all the top offices and Dave and everyone, they just do a screen share on Zoom and they're like, all right, you want to do it? Go for it. Like, let's walk through. So just go ahead and pull. And so their phone is up while they're doing it and sending it out. And they're like, yeah, as replied, like, oh, what do I say to this? I'm like, here's what you say to that. I did that with Mina. Hers, like we did it together on Zoom, and then, you know, I helped her answer questions and stuff, right? But that also protected that if she did get a crazy picture, you know, she like just didn't want to look bad, right? Like some people are still like, whatever, like, hey, that's fine. You know, they were able to screen that and just give me the info I needed to help her, you know, help them. So anyway, but that's a big thing. So other like Molly, anything you've noticed, like anything happening, like what do you feel is going good in training? What do you feel could be better?
So my past experience working on training is working with John, who can be a very wordy man at times. And so one thing that I've noticed is that everybody that has like run training is very good at like getting straight to the point and hitting the timestamps like exactly. But one thing that I've noticed from John's that like kind of helps, in my opinion, with retention is building rapport with them in orientation, and then throughout training, just continuously like referring back to the stuff that he already knows about them, and like interacting with them, like talking to them, and like just giving them a chance to like have a voice and speak. And even if it's not about Cutco, I know that he used to like let us just go on 5-minute tangents about like ranch dressing and whether or not you dip pizza in it. And even though it's like completely irrelevant to the job, it like helps them kind of like laugh and like stay on like come back and focus better than if they were just sitting for like 8 hours on end.
Yeah, that's great. And that's something that for sure, you know, is so different in the virtual world, because in the live, we get to have a lot of that rapport building time, like during the breaks, before, after, as people are role playing, we're walking around, high-fiving them, you know, cracking jokes. It's like, oh, how they do, oh, they're going to beat you, you know, like, and we don't have that. And so I think John has done a really great job incorporating ways to make people feel really comfortable, you know, and like, be like, oh, this is cool. I want to work here, right? Like, I want to stay here, which is great, you know. And then there's areas of opportunity with like, okay, like, how do we create pop? How do we get people good? How do we, you know, different things. And so for us, like the stuff I'm going to go over tonight is really going to help with like that first weekend pop, and like, how are we setting them up? Like, what are we doing to create great launch? And that has to do with the relationship part, right? And so that's why we need to look at to see who else can jump on just to like mingle and say hi. But that's why we had the mingle session and like, you know, share something or whatever, like in small groups, people meeting each other, you know, laughing, or where there was like, hey, fine, let's see what group comes out with the most things in common, or, you know, but it just like gets them to meet people say things and then just chit chatting, during breaks with people is really big. And so what are we doing to help, are we building relationships? Do they like you? Are they excited about working with you? And I do it in different ways, Molly. I'm definitely not like John at all. Like everyone's going to put their personality and do it how they do it. For me, it's the before and after conversations. It's the during break conversations. Like when we're on a break, I'm like, oh, so tell me about this. And, we're chatting during break. I don't take time away from the training to like sit and talk about random shit, but like during the breaks, I do that. And then afterwards, like, how are your guys' calls on Thursday night? Are you guys connecting with the people you were given? By the way, Fridays when we're doing PCs and stuff, but like Thursday, Cass, you should be splitting those up so that whoever's going to talk to them Friday, you start building that relationship.
I
So
was
you're
gonna
like,
say, we need to have a text message that introduced Thursday night. Hey, I'm gonna be your coach. Let me know if you need anything. So that they already know who that person's gonna be come Friday
Yep.
morning.
And yeah, absolutely. And you could just do that. You could just shoot them a text, just like, hey, this is Molly. Just want to introduce myself, like want to see how training went today. I'm super excited, or I'm going to be your team lead or whatever. I'm going to be your support during training to make sure you're feeling good. Any questions you have, anything you need, but like people are like, oh my gosh, thank you so much or whatever. I personally like to call my people just because like, I'm like, oh, so how'd you feel? How's this? Like any questions, like any apprehensions, right? You guys are cool texting back and forth forever. I hate doing that. So like, I just like to call them. And if they don't pick up, then I'll send them a text and say, hey, it's Kathy from Cutco. Just want to say, I'm so excited to have you on the team. Wanted to check in and see if you had any questions and make sure that we, give you proper support to set you up for a great weekend. Right. And then the person responds back and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you. I loved it. I feel really good. Or, oh, I had a question about this. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, hey, and then my next thing, no matter, if they're like, oh, I feel great. Thank you. No, I love it. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I'm like, awesome. I'm like, well, hey, how are you feeling with the assignment for tonight? How many numbers do you think you can collect? Right? Like we need to be driving that. If we want to create, so that's doing two things. It's actually helping us with the launch, right? But it's also helping us with the pop, which tonight we're going to talk about the pop, but like I'll probably mention this again. So like from after orientation saying, hey, welcome to the team, super excited to work with you, and I can create a message like the one I send out and you guys can tailor it yourself, right? If you want to change it up, I don't care. They just need to feel welcome and know that there's someone there to like support them, right? And then we need to also make sure like, are they collecting numbers that night and how they're doing with that, okay? Then when they come, and then the next thing, and Molly, I don't know if they do, but I'll invite people to like grab something to eat, before training or maybe in the morning. So like, I like to do some of the PCs even earlier if I can, but maybe with the people like, hey, I'd love to grab lunch with you, on Zoom or whatever. Like I'd love to chat and get to know you, maybe for just like 15, 20 minutes before training starts. And so maybe a lot of people that you're gonna, you're running pump in, so you're not gonna do that. But, just like that's something that I'll do with my top people. And so like, let's say in your branch next summer, Molly, like I'll say, hey, if you can meet me tomorrow at blank time, like I'd love to like grab breakfast and just kind of get to know you, and so like, that's where I get to know people. I'm like, oh, something about this, something about that. And we like talk about random stuff having nothing to do with Cutco pretty much the whole time, like at the end, I'm like, hey, by the way, like you guys are people I'm super excited about. And I do like a 5-minute quick spiel on like why I'm excited to work with you. We're looking for leaders, key staff, like all this. And like, hey, if you're someone who's excited about advancement, let us know. Also, you're going to hear about stuff in training today. And we have a really big contest in your first 10 days. Cool. And it starts technically with sales tomorrow, but really with the work we do today. Cool. And so what you're going to learn today, the work we're going to do later with calling and setting up your first practice appointments. And so I just encourage them to go after it. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for leaders during that time and people that, want to go after it. And like, I'm going to be putting, giving them extra attention and coaching to make sure they succeed at high levels. Right. And so like, you're just there, they feel good. Like they're getting those connections with you, because like what you're going to learn, and as your operation gets bigger and bigger and bigger, when you're the owner, you're the manager, you're not going to get to you're not going to manage everybody. Okay. And so you want to manage your top 20 to 50%, when the team is smaller, 50%, once the team is, over 80 people, it's like, 10%, or you can manage, sorry, 15 plus, right? 15 plus. So depending on what size your team is, if your team is 30 people, that's 50%, right? If your team is 80 people, that's 10%. But about 15 to 20 people is the most that any manager is going to be able to like properly manage while running the office, right? And so what happens to all your other reps? Well, they're going to be managed by some of them because you're going to show them how to be team leaders, right? So anyway, but that's like a lot of the connection is like I said, before and after and one-on-one convos, for me. But like, are we doing that properly? Do people feel comfortable? Do you get to know, like, why are you working? What are you excited about? Why do you need money? Like, why did you get a job? Like, I ask people that, right? I'm like, so Molly, why are you working? Like, why'd you get a job? And some people are like, huh? I'm like, yeah, like, I'm like, why work? I'm like, is it money, experience? Like, what are you working for? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, I'm like, whatever they say, I'm like, oh, cool. And why, why is that important? Or, if they say, oh, money for this, or I need to pay for rent. I'm like, cool. I'm like, why is that? I'm like, is that like just alleviating your parents? I'm like, how does that, help you? Or is there other things beyond that are more like exciting for you to like, like a bigger, like where it's like, I'll pay for rent and then I don't have to like worry about this, or I don't have to take out loans, or I don't have to, do this with my, put a burden on my family. Like, is there a bigger reason as to like why you're excited about being able to like pay rent or take care of it? And some people are like, no, I just need to make sure I pay. I'm like, well, are there any other like exciting goals that you want to go after, right? Financially, like, would you be excited about paying off any debt or buying a new car or buying your first property? Or is there anything you're excited about financially beyond that? And they're like, oh, well, it'd be really cool to like take my mom on a vacation, or, like whatever they say. I'm like, all right, awesome. But just diving in a little bit more. And so, oh, hey, buddy. Yeah, you got a muffin. When you guys are, going through like whatever, there's just things that with retention, with launching them, they need to feel like they can actually do the job. All right. And so when they're role playing, people who are supporting training, like Molly on Friday, when you're supporting training, like when they role play, your butt should be hopping around the room. It's like, hey, how you guys feeling? Like, you guys should be splitting up and just make sure like they're feeling, hey, any questions? Like, hey, we'll chat later, but just making sure like, do they feel comfortable? Do they feel like they can actually do it, right? Do they feel like they're going to have people to see, right? And then do they feel they're going to buy, right? Like, and so everyone's scared. I mean, I think about Taylor Max. He just got inducted last year into the Cutco Hall of Fame, all right? This kid in training was like, who really buys this stuff? I don't know if anyone's going to buy this. By the way, he still launched because we built a relationship with him, but he was still super skeptical. And for 6 weeks, he was super skeptical and he didn't sell much, all right? And finally, I was like, yo, be on my SC2 Alliance. Let me coach you. Let me go through but here's what I need from you. Stop being skeptical. Just jump in for 2 weeks. I go, if it sucks, you quit. I go, if it actually goes well, I was like, you can thank me later. All right. And he's like, all right, fine. And he was on that. And by the way, he sold 14 grand in those races. Like, oh, wow, people really do buy Cutco, and now he's like training people all across the country. He's in the Cutco Hall of Fame. He's one of the best reps in our company's history, here 10 years later. All right. And it's pretty awesome to see that. But if I hadn't like gotten time and like handled his concerns, and even though he wasn't totally still like, he's like, I still don't think people are going to spend money on this, but let's see, because I sat with him and I was like, look, if you go through here, hi baby, if you look at this and you break down, I broke down, like, I'm like, what do you spend? I'm like, do you spend money? I saw him like with energy drinks every day. I'm like, how much do you spend on energy drinks per week? I'm like, do you know people that smoke? And I showed him one-on-one. So even though I did it for the whole group, like I literally had to sit with him and kind of like redo like what people spend money on. And he was like, oh, you're right. I was like, so 20, 30 bucks a week for somebody that works, do you really feel that's that big of a deal? I'm like, and an investment they're going to use every day and have forever? And he's like, well, no, I guess not. But he was like, oh, that makes sense. And so that's the only reason he like finished the training, because it did make sense. But then he was like, all right, let's see if people really buy, right? And that took him. Hi, Dada. So anyway, but those are things that are important, is like, do they actually think they can do the job? Do they feel they can make money doing the job? Cool. And then do they feel like they're actually gonna have people to see? All right. So those are really big things that hold people back or will push them forward. Okay. So when it comes to launching them, now retention, all right, retention past the launch, a lot of it's going to have to do with relationship. And then they actually like, people are different. I don't want to say they have to make money. All right. For most people, the people who come here to make money, like if that's their goal of why they got a job, they have to make money if they're going to stay here. Cool. People who came for experience will stay even if they're not making money, because like they want to learn, they want to grow. They're here for a different reason. Okay.
Only if they're gaining experience.
Right. They're getting experience if they're learning. All right. If not, then they're going to go do something else, or not waste their time. All right. So the relationship building aspect is going to be a piece, but like they need to see success. And for us, as recruiter, being in a recruiting business, okay, a big thing when you're going through with the reps, all right, is that they actually want to share the job, right? This goes back to what we were just talking about, but like we want to multiply our best people. Cool. That's our number one thing, is like, can we multiply our best people as managers, as recruiters? We want to multiply our best people. Well, guys, if our best people don't like us, or if they don't believe in the job, like, why are they going to share it with other people, right? But if they're like, oh my God, the people I work with are awesome. Like, I love my office. I love this, like they're excited to share the job because they love it. So what are you doing to help create that? Part of that, though, they do need to make money, because even if they're here for experience, their buddy's going to say, how much have you made? And if they're like, I've only made $50, they're like, I don't know if I want to go there. But the people are awesome. Some people might like that, but other people are like, nah, dude, I need to make some money, But if they're like, oh yeah, the people are awesome, and they're like, how much money? Dude, I made $1,600 my first week. They're like, what? They're like, sign me up. Like, what do you do? Like, I want to do that, right? So part of us multiplying our business is that we need to have more trophies, more human trophies who have seen success. Because if their friends haven't, succeeded here, like that's not as attractive. And if they have, and they're doing really well and they're advancing and they're growing, they're like, oh, dang, my friend's doing really well here and she loves it. Like, I'm excited to do this too. All right. And so I want to make sure that you guys keep that in mind as we're going through there. All right.
Nice.
So, go ahead.
Add something, and then there's a couple things I wanted to talk about training specific.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, and to go along with what Kathy's saying here, a big thing that needs to also happen is that part of the accountability is just being a tough coach and not letting them get away with things that aren't setting them up for success. And having that tough conversation of like, hey, you could definitely see this person. I don't recommend it. Let's move them. Or, hey, you could see these people or talk to this person for people. Who do you know that supports you best? Let's focus on these 3 people to see who we can get recommendations from. Like, really give them clear plans and clear objectives. But the big note that I want everyone to do is you all need to have notes, like a notebook to be taking notes. Because as Kathy teaches you it's these little lines that she gives you that actually makes the biggest deal. It's not just that you thought something. It's like the way she has it said, it's said in a way that creates action. It also creates belief in them, in you. So they trust you more. And when they trust you, they want to recommend more people and they'll do more for you and the job, right? So sometimes it's like having that tough conversation is the most important thing you can do, because then they're going to know that you're in their corner, even though it's uncomfortable. It's like, hey, Zavi, I need you to make some calls. Like it's not the most fun part, but it's what we got to do right now. It's grinding through that list, getting as many numbers as we can tonight, so that tomorrow when you come back, all we have to do is call a couple people, book some demos, and this weekend's collecting a paycheck. But it's like, and also planting the seeds, like, here, we got to do some work. This is the tough part, so that we can make it a lot easier for you. That was just one thing I want to mention is like, everybody, you all need to have a notebook too. Like, anytime.
When I run training this week, I need you guys, like Cass, anyone who's watching, by the way, I'd encourage anyone who like wants to learn how to run training or like have their office, like for you to watch me run training. I'm not going to run training again this fall, but I'm going to run the beginning. I'm going to run the first 2 hours of orientation, and then Cass will do the app and finish up the rest of the day. Cause then I'm going to hop with Allison and I'm going to run AT2. Cool. So you can see how to like run it and rock it the right way. And then we're going to go into team meeting. Spencer will be doing the 5 o'clock workshop, or Zavi, we'll see whoever, we'll talk about that in a second. We'll run the 5 o'clock workshop. We'll put a video and debrief that. And then we'll go into team meeting. And I actually want to watch Cass go through that, and then I want to show you guys what to do during team meeting, because like there's a lot, like that is your time, like your people are there, and like you can do and create so much, get so many updates, make sure they're set up for the week, like know their plan from now through Monday to finish the week strong. Like conversations, like when they're phoning, guys, you're phoning too, you're talking to every single rep that's there. Okay, the ones that are not, and then the ones that are key people that are not there, you're definitely reaching out, hey, where you at, everything okay, and reaching out to them. The ones that are like not like your lower half and they're not there, I'm not spending time on them until I have finished with those who are in front of me. I'm like, where are my top guys that are not here? Let me focus on the guys in front of me and make sure that they're set up, because they chose to be here. And so I need to make sure to help them be successful. And then with the ones that are not there, if I have time, I'm going to call them that night. If not the next day, we're going to have conversations of like, hey, what happened? And like really steer them in the right direction to make sure that we are getting them involved with the office. And so that's really important. Okay. And so we're going to talk about like the pop aspect and stuff at GCLA tonight. So I'm not going to do it now. Cool. Then we have, so now they started with us that first weekend, you know, like, are they being like right when they launch on Saturday, Molly, Cass, for you guys. And so this is something we need to talk about, because if we're doing teams, I think it's really good for team captain to talk to them. Like they should know, like, even when they're in training, that they're going to be on Abby's team, you know, or they should know they're going to be on Zavi's team, you know? And so in the weekend, they know they have you as an access point, you know? And so I think right now we're still doing call the PDI line and then your team captain. But in the next couple of weeks, we want to switch that, because how it actually should be is call your team captain. And if they don't answer, then call the PDI line, right? And so that's typically, so you guys can learn how to do that. But we need to teach you guys how to get good at PDI, how to do that. And we're going to work on that this weekend. And so again, this weekend, Molly and Allison are coming down, and Abby, I think Abby's gonna come down too. And I'm gonna be coaching them Saturday. Once the launch happens, we're gonna I'm gonna do a lot of coaching on PDI. We're gonna do PDI together, you know, and then we're gonna go out and have some fun. But I'm gonna show them how to do that. And I want to invite anybody who can come over. And if not, I can be on Zoom while I'm coaching them, you know, but if you can come over and come hang with us and learn, it'll be really great to have that, you know, like all my best PDIers, like, what I'm doing this weekend, every time I've done this, you know, which I usually do it like once a campaign, like that's what's taught them how to get good at that, you know, and then through repetition, they got great and got confidence in it. And so we're going to talk about closing deals, how to do it, how to upsell, you know, how to deal with different scenarios. And then I'm excited because, you know, Abby, Molly, you know, Kaz, you guys have done PDI and you've gotten scenarios that you can throw at me and say, how about when this happens? Like, how would you have handled it? Or like, if someone calls saying this, you know, like anything I don't go over. And so you're able to learn at a much higher level. Cool. So this is the week that I will tell all of you, if you're able to be more involved, more engaged, if you have time that you're not doing something, you can jump on and learn. I'm going to be on, you know, like working on stuff, even if I'm doing a PC with someone or whatever, like there's stuff that you guys can like learn from watching. So we want to make sure that during their first weekend, like, are they set up? Like, do we talk to them right when they leave training? And it's like, hey, so you ready for that first one? How are you feeling? I have an old video of that. This was something I was talking to Mark Bullard. Mark Bullard had the top productivity in Southwest region this summer. And Mark said, he's like, honestly, I went back to old school. He's like, we talked to every rep when they left training, or like the PC on the second day. When we walk through their schedule, it's just like, oh, who's this person? Like, what number are they in your top 10? You know, it's expecting that they have their top 10 being booked, you know, and it's like, oh no, they're not in my top 10. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, hey, are they married, or do they have any exceptions? Are they single? Are they in an apartment or anything? And they're like, no, they're married. Their averages don't know. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, then that's fine if you want to see them. But I probably wouldn't see them as one of your first two, you know, your first two, you want two of your top 5, which we're going to talk about later. But just making sure we guide them. But then they'd ask, so who are they? What do you think they're going to get? You know, it's like, oh, why do you think they're going to get that? You know, and I remember having these conversations, and you have them in the PCs as well as in the call when they leave. And if you watch my video on, which Molly, I forgot to send you, I'm so sorry. I got sidetracked yesterday. I just remember that. But if you watch my video on launching people, like when they leave, there's a video on of me doing it live, like when they left training, and I was like, oh, what do you think they're going to get? Like kind of guiding them. I'm like, make sure to call me. You handle a lot of the things that they were unsure of on that PC or on that phone call on their way to their first demo. For example, I had a girl, Stephanie, and she was like, I said, oh, you know, what, who's this? Oh, my aunt. I'm like, oh, why is she your number? You know, what number is she? Oh, she's my number 4. I'm like, oh, why do you think she's one of your top 5? She's like, oh, well, she like loves to cook. I'm like, does she love to cook? Does she entertain? She's like, oh my gosh, she loves to cook. You know, she's always having people over, I said, oh my God, that's awesome. What do you think she's going to get? You know, a small, medium, or large set? And she's like, I don't know. She's like, maybe a small set, right? So this is what she tells me. And I'm like, you just told me she loves to cook and entertain and has people over all the time. And she said, I know, I don't know if she can spend that much money. I said, totally get it. I said, well, hey, call me. Because if she wanted to do a homemaker, I said, don't forget, if you break it down, it's only $52 a week. I said, and for someone who works full time, very doable. People spend that at happy hour, like multiple times a week. I said, but let's say they're a little bit tighter, right? Even her and her husband, it's $25.50 each. Cool. Do you think they spend 25 bucks a week on, like, I don't know, Starbucks or energy drinks or, random things that they like? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, cool. I'm like, so here's what I'll tell you. Make sure that when you show the prices, break it down and show them, hey, auntie, this comes out to 25 bucks each. And then just say, is that something you guys would feel comfortable with? Cool. And if they say no, no problem. We're going to drop down at the galley. We're going to show them the galley. And if not, we'll drop down. I was like, but just call me. This is really good deals. I said, and the second thing is, I said, you can, I said, with the homemaker, I said, we have something called a trade-in special. And so I'm talking to her, this is before her demo. I'm like, we have something called a trade-in. I said, you know how people can trade in a car at a dealership and get discount? I said, people can trade in or donate some of their old stuff and get discounts or free stuff. I go, so that's another option. So just make sure you call me once you find what they like, so I can show you the best deal. Cool. And she was like, okay, awesome. And by the way, she ended up calling in and she was like, oh, they actually really like the homemaker. I was wondering about that trade-in thing that you told me about, because, they're not totally sure because they're a little bit stuck on, they weren't planning on spending money today. I'm like, yeah, totally get it. I told them the deal and the people were so excited and they bought it, right? I had someone that told me, oh, my first customer, they're my number, 3, whatever. I said, what do you think they're going to get? Hunting and fishing stuff, right? That's what they said. I'm like, oh, why? Oh, because the husband loves to hunt. I said, awesome. I said, did they also cook? He's like, oh yeah, they do. I said, is the wife going to be there? They said, yeah. I'm like, make sure the wife is there. I said, if you want a shot at a set, make sure the wife is there. I said, here's the deal. I said, make sure to really focus and get excited about the homemaker set. I said, because if they got that, I could give them the fishing knife, a hunting knife, and a pocket knife for free. And he was like, what? I said, yeah, all 3 of those. I was like, I know it's not in your manual. I know your manual says the scissors. I said, but we could do a fishing knife, a hunting knife, and a pocket knife if they did the homemaker +8. I said, so just make sure you call me because they get some sick deals. And guess what that rep sold? That he called me. He goes, so I told him about that homemaker with the hunting knife, fishing knife, pocket knife. I can still do that, right? I was like, yeah. I go, that's fine. He's like, all right, awesome. My uncle and I want to do that. I'm like, great. And I could tell you story after story. And Mark and I were talking about this with the DVMs, but like so many times what we talked about is what they ended up doing, right? Like I had a rep, and I think on one of the calls that's recorded that was like, I don't know if they're going to do, get that much, like they're kind of tight. I said, well, hey, I said, don't stress yourself, have fun, show the homemaker, show the payments, make sure you break it down to how much per person. I said, and if they're not comfortable or they don't want that, no, drop down to the galley. I said, and if not, drop down to the starter. And then I focused on the starter. I said, look, with the all knife or the studio at that time when I was doing this with the rep, I'm like, it's like 84 bucks is the payment they put down today, right? Or 89 bucks, I think it was. I'm like, it's 89 bucks is what they put down. I said, so they're literally putting aside 22 bucks a week. All right. I said, do they work? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. I said, it's 22 bucks a week. I said, it's $11 each. I was like, do you think that they're both comfortable spending $11 each on something random? She's like, well, yeah. I'm like, yeah, people spend that, whatever, randomly going to Walmart to grab something, or I don't know, people spend $11 a week on random crap, right? I said, so do you think they could afford $22 a week combined? And she was like, yeah, I think they could do that, right? Because she was telling me they were tight. She didn't think they'd buy more. And I said, cool. I go, so worst case, you sell them a starter set and they put aside 22 bucks a week and they're going to be so happy with their investment. And in the future, they're probably going to buy more. I said about 85%, I think is the company statistic of people that own Cutco and rebuy. And she was like, oh, wow. I said, so go have fun, call me. I said, don't stress about the homemaker, but show it to them and show them the options. And if they like it, call me for a deal. But if they don't want to do that today, just drop down. And don't forget that those smaller starter sets, 89 bucks, which I think now they're like 94 bucks, right? I'm like, is the deposit? I said, it's 22 bucks. It's $11 each. And she was like, okay. And by the way, she called me and she goes, hey, I'm at the All Knife. They feel comfortable with this. I showed them how it's like $11 each. I just want to see, like, could they do a barbecue set? And I was like, no, we can't do the barbecue. We could do like 2 of the pieces. I was like, if they add, is there anything else they like a fishing knife, a hunting knife, the scissors, anything? Oh, they love the scissors. I said, if they add the scissors, which would increase their deposit by like 20 bucks, 22 bucks. Or sorry, they're older by that. So it would increase their payment by like nothing, like $5 or something. Then I said, we can do the barbecue stuff for free, you know, and then she's like, okay, awesome. And she ended up selling that. Right. And so it's like, in that conversation and that PC you had in training, you know, Molly, Jay, anyone who's helping with like PCs on either Friday or Saturday, all right, or the call you have with them before their demo, you can handle a lot of their fears as well as direct them, you know, based on what they're thinking. Because guys, whatever they think the customer's going to do, a lot of times is what happens. Okay. If they think the customer's not going to buy, they're not going to buy. They're surprised when they do, and they'll still have some of those surprises. If they're like very certain, like someone, they show up with a different type of confidence. And guys, your customers feed off of you. All right. A sale of any kind, all right, is a transfer of enthusiasm and confidence from one person to another. And they're like, oh my God, I want to try that too. I want to do that too. I want to have that too. Right. And so that's a whole other conversation on like sales and psychology and dynamics of that, but just making sure that we understand that. All right. So those conversations, setting them up in their first weekend, and then how we handle first weekend and get them to advanced training on Tuesday makes a huge difference. All right. A week and a half ago, we launched 14 people. And Cassandra, I hope you're hearing me. She might be running a bathroom. That's 14 people. All right. In advanced training last week, we didn't have 14 people. All right. How many did you have, Spencer? It was less than half. It was like 4 or 5 people. That's not good. That's not good for retention. Okay. Because they're not learning how to be good at the job. They're not going to build confidence in the job, and they're going to fall off. Cool. If you're a branch manager and you're trying to recruit and build your team, you lose 10 of your 14. You're not able to multiply or duplicate and help them grow. Your business is going to stay stagnant. It's not going to grow layers. Okay. And so we want to make sure that we're we're retaining them, all right, so that they can stay on our team and add layers to our team, you know, and if they're excited about it, help us even keep growing our team, right? So that first weekend handling, they're like little, and I'll talk about that later. We have to make sure we do a better job with that, okay? Because there's a lot there that can make them feel really, and even if they don't do well, like, are we getting them to AT? And so we'll hit that hard later today. Then it's events and event management, guys. If we want to retain people, we've got to get them to the next event. What's the next event? Team meeting. What's the next event? Breakfast club. What's the next event? Phone jam. What's the next, whatever is happening in the next 24, 48 hours, like, you know, but they should be at 2 or 3 things a week. All right. They should be at PSP on Sunday. They should be at team meeting on Thursday. They should have a PC. Those are the minimum 3, right? And then hopefully we have them for a phone jam or another workshop. Okay. So that's really important if we want to start seeing big reports, right? So that's really huge. And Cass, I don't know if you heard me before, but we're going to talk about it big tonight, and I need you really focused on that. But like that first weekend to advanced training is one of the biggest things right now that I feel we're lacking. We need to do a better job with, and like that's going to really move the needle as far as them feeling confidence with the job. Because guys, when people come to advanced training, like we always see a pop, you know, and just they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better now. Oh, I didn't understand that. I didn't know that. You know, they miss things in training, and it isn't until they've actually done it that when you teach them, when they've actually had some experience, they learn it different. It sinks in different. And some things we might have said in training that they didn't hear, they hear in advanced training because they're like, okay, how do I do this? Right. And they're listening differently. So it makes a really big impact. All right. And we'll talk more through stuff. And so in our staff meetings every week, just so you guys know, like we're going to walk through and it's going to be a quick hit. It's like, this is not a normal staff meeting. I haven't been here, and I want to make sure we're set up. And that we know like what we need to focus on, what we need to do to move forward. But every week you guys are going to need to come ready with your team updates. Cool. You literally get 2 minutes. It's fast. It's like these people, this was on the newsletter. This one's here. This one didn't sell anything. I haven't talked to these people. Cool. Like you're just going to give us a quick update on your team. All right. Whoever wants to, but like you're going to give a quick update. Not whatever captain, co-captain wants to give it. Not like if you want to give your update or not for your team. Every team will have an update. So we'll do that really quick. So we'll start off the staff meeting real quick. What went well last week? What could have gone better? Cool. What went well / what did you learn? Maybe you're like, this one, really, I got really good at this, or I got really comfortable with this, right? Maybe Jackie, we worked on something and you like didn't, you're like, oh my God, I'm feeling really a lot better with this, right? So I want to know like, where are you guys progressing? Cool. So what do you feel went well last week? As you were working in your role, what's improving, what's going well, and then what do you feel that you need help with? Cool. And again, not a long drawn out thing. This is a quick, like felt really good with PCs last week. I was really excited about this. I'm like, I could really use help with doing the rep driven aspect of it. I was not averaging 2 PR set for every PC I did, and I want to get help with that. I'm like, cool. All right. And then I'll know to help you with that. All right. Because we're going to learn a lot through the experiences that you have. Cool. And so that's really important. So the first, part of our, we'll do a quick, like each person gets a minute, what could have gone better. So that's 10 minutes, and then team updates will be like a minute and a half each. So that should be another 5 minutes. And then we're going to dive into some teaching, through that and what's happening. We need to talk about team meeting. All right. Which we're low on time. So we're going to need to talk a little bit about that after the recruiting stuff, but who's doing what workshops for the week, right? Who's leading team meeting. And that's something we can even map out this weekend, the rest of the fall of like, Abby's running next week's team meeting. The next week, Azavi's running it. The next week, and you guys have in your calendar, whatever it is, right? But like everyone having a week that like you're in charge, like team night, like everything, like you're in charge of that. And we'll help support you. Any questions you have, anything you need, but we want to see you guys stepping in, like whoever's comfortable to say, hey, I'll run this week, so that we can see you do it and we can give you feedback. I would love for the meetings to be as least of me and Spencer talking, and even Cass will do one, but it's going to rotate. But I want to see you guys in action so that we can give you feedback and help you elevate, so that when you have your own office, you're crushing it. Cool. Because this is your time to learn. All right. The fall, just so you guys know, statistically, the fall is learning. The spring is perfecting, right? Mastering, and the summer is executing like a mother effer, right? So it's like, we're learning, we're mastering, we're freaking executing. All right. Like that's kind of the role of campaigns. And so anytime we're doing new programs, new systems, typically we like to like learn them in the fall, master them in the spring, execute in the summer, which has been really hard with COVID the last 2 years because new shit's popping up all the time. But anyway, want to help you guys with that. So we'll go through, whatever, just who's running what, and then who are our top 10 focus people. And like when you guys give your team, actually, I'll just have you give, these are my 3 people that I'm getting on the newsletter next week. Okay. So when you give your team update, I want a quick rundown on who was on the newsletter, like where they were in sales. Cool. So like everyone who sold, you're going to give them in groups. This was newsletter. All right. Over 1,000. This was 500 to 999. These guys were, 1 CPO to 499. And then these are my 0 sellers. So those are the 4 buckets. So if you guys want to write that down, there's 4 buckets that your sales, your people are going to go into. It's the goose eggs, which we really want to work hard on reducing that. Cool. Like take pride in no one being at 0. Like even if you help them someone buy peeler, all right, it's like, hell yeah. All right. But how many 0 sellers, how many 1 CPO to 499, how many 500 to 999, how many over 1,000. All right. And because each week it's like, how do we get them to match or beat, right? Like, how do we help them match or beat their week before? And obviously if someone has like 11K faster at week, you got to match or beat it next week. All right. But you can still talk about like what's possible because they're not going to work as hard, but it's like, how do we keep you consistently, over 3,000, maybe it's not 11,000 a week, but like 3,000 a week, right? Your average order is 500, that's 6 sales. That would be 10 demos. Do you feel comfortable with 10 demos a week? And they're like, yeah, I can do that. Like that's another topic, but anyway. So what I want from you guys, goose eggs, those 4 quadrants, cool. These guys were here, these guys were here, these guys were here, these guys were here. And the 5th group is haven't talked to them. Cool. So that's going to be your quick, so ideally, I'd love for you not to pull up web PDI. I'd love for you to like have it somewhere, like a spreadsheet, a PowerPoint, whatever. It's just fast where we can visually look at a slide and see it quickly. And you're like, these are these. And this is just good for you to start getting these habits, right? But it's just real quick, throw them on there. It'll take you like a minute to type it. Just like pull up a PowerPoint, just type the names of who was here, who was here, who was here, and then who was MIA. Cool. And the 6th thing that I want is who are the people that you are focusing on for newsletter this week. Cool. So goose eggs, a sale, over 500, over 1,000, haven't talked to them. And then who are your newsletter focus people? All right. For the week. And so I want to make sure that we know like who are those people and that they're being, handled at the highest level. And so for us, for Cassandra and Spencer, we're looking at on a big scale of who are our 10 people that we're getting on the newsletter every week. Cool. That's the number we need to get to, Cass and Spencer, is like 10 people on the newsletter every single week. So we have 4 teams. All right. there should be 2 people from each team on average, right? And then 2 people minimum from the training class. Boom, that equals 10. Does that sound doable? Help 2 people. And by the way, you can be one of those 2. So it's like you plus someone else, right? And that's a really big goal and focus of assistant managers, is leading by example. You know, Lloyd was like, why are AMs? You only had 1 assistant manager on the newsletter. Like, why is that happening? And so making sure that, oh, sorry, I just saw it there. The price increase stuff. So thank you, Brie. But yeah, so making sure that, you know, we always have, because if you have 10 people on the newsletter, guys, that's going to be some really, really exciting sales reports, all right, for your office. So that's really big, and we're going to really be focused on that. Okay. And so, yeah, we'll make sure team meeting, any team nights, anything that's happening, make sure that we have that all. All right. So with that, I want to look real quick on this. I'd love to have something that like the team can get together, that we can go out, that we can do something on Saturday night. So we're going to be at my house working and coaching, and then we can go somewhere. I'd rather keep it local-ish to the Clear Lake area, and people can drive in over here. Oh, I was about to close your guys' room. Thank you. What do you guys, what's the preference if we say like, hey, we're doing a team night, like most of the staff's going to be there, like come hang, like we're going out, and then, you know, and then we can like, whoever wants to like go out after we can. But like around 8 to say, hey, meet at Top Golf, or hey, meet at Dave and Buster's, or hey, meet at, you know, this place. Like what is fun for y'all? Like everyone's different. And like, I don't even know what kids like these days. So team night, Saturday night, this Saturday, what are we gonna do? Let me go ahead and scare about creating versus collecting, right? One thing is whatever applications come in, whatever's happening, we handle them, right? Like we book them for interviews, we do whatever, like whatever comes in, we're handling. And that will make you have an okay office, and depending what city you're in, right? Because we don't know. And when we're not necessarily getting are the people we want, right? The people we want, we typically find them. They're usually recommended to us. We find them on campus. We have conversations, like the kids that we want. You know, typically a lot of times like parents don't want them working during school or whatever, you know, they have a lot of other things going on. Like I did, I had 2 jobs. I was playing sports. I was in honors college. I got a lot going on. I wasn't looking for another job. But then, you know, when the summer, I like found it, and I was like, you know what? Like I found that business card and, you know, checked it out, and ended up being pretty badass. Right. And so one of the big things, you know, for us as if we want to be a high-powered organization, which, you know, we have the track record of in my organization, is that we have to put on that like creator mindset, and like knowing that we can always create anything we want at any time if we put focus attention and effort towards it, you know. And so that's really important. So I think about with recruiting right now, the top of the funnel, it's like, what are we doing to create touches? You know, like I'm freaking out going into these last 2 weeks because we didn't get to do anything to create. You know, we don't have a lot of PR names. We didn't get to go to campus today. We have a hurricane coming. Classes are shut down a lot of the campuses tomorrow. We're not going to have that. And so it's like, what do we do this week to create? And there's other things that we can do, obviously, you know, messages on social media, sending text messages out, sending emails to your classes for those who haven't done that already, sending a similar message, posting in your group me of your classes and saying, hey, my job has opportunities. Like if you guys know anyone that might be looking for work, it has scholarships, it has this, it has that, let me know if you want more info, like private message me with more info. And posting something in your groups, in your actual group me of your group, or you can do it privately to each person, right? Because when you're in a group, you can click a person in the gallery and message them directly, right? Even if you don't know them. So you can copy paste and like send them all an individual message if you don't want to do it, you know, on the actual like platform, right? And so that's worked better for a lot of people, is doing private messages. So that way one person doesn't ruin it if they're like, what is this, you know, or whatever, and they go into other stuff. And so these are, you know, things that we can do. You know, I can ask people, I can post on my Snap, I can ask a couple specific people, like there's like 2 or 3 people, I'm like, hey, can you share this for me? Because I know they have tons of people, you know, and I'll hook them up. Like, hey, if people come in from here, like we'll give you, you know, I'll give you $20 as a thank you, you know, for just helping post it or helping share it or whatever. You know, also you guys have done like Abby, Allison, Molly. I know for you guys, like you guys a lot, or 2 weeks we were together and we did, sending out the snap to everyone, asking them to share, right? Well, guys, just so you know, any of you, if you have a friend who's down, like to let you do a snap takeover for a second, I have verbiage around it. Because some of our guys did that this summer where it was like, hey, I have a quick favor. And they're like, hey, what's up? I'm like, would you be willing to post about like, and I had the verbiage for it and I'll grab it for you. But we did this. And the friend was like, yeah, sure. And like, we didn't offer them anything, or you can, or if they were hesitant, they didn't say yes right away, then we did offer them something, and so we were like, oh, well, you can do this, or I'll give you $50 or whatever. My manager will give you and I'll obviously pay for this. Okay. But this is something that you guys can do, is ask, like, each of you has 2 or 3 friends, I'm sure, that is on, social media, that does have, is on Snapchat or whatever, that this would be worth it. All right. I don't want to do this for just like someone who has like 20 people on Snapchat. I want to make sure that, this is someone that, gets views on Snapchat, that like actually has some kind of a following. And so this is what we, sent them. We said, hey, I know this is super random, but my company has positions for summer, for work for the fall. I'm trying to help spread the word. Was wondering if you'd be willing to share this on your story and tag me for more details, right? And they sent the picture to that friend. And most people were like, yeah, sure, no problem, dude. I'll post it for you, right? But this is, so that's your normal, that's your normal, like asking people to post, right? Which you guys have done, or raise your hand if you've done it in the last 2 weeks. Raise your hand if you already did that. So I know. All right, cool. So there's some of you guys, we still need to do that. And I want to get that done here today. And then asking friends for Snap, we said, hey, I need a huge favor. Do you have a quick second to chat? And they were like, yeah, what's up? And I'm like, hey, my office. So I'm interning with Cutco, and my office has some openings for the fall. I'm like, I was hoping you could help me with something super simple. I'm like, basically, I would just send you a flyer. I would just send a flyer like the one I just sent you, to tell everyone, telling them, hey, my friend's business has some openings. If anyone's interested, call her. And then just tag myself so they can, tag me directly. And so I just wanted to see if, if I could use your Snap and just send that. Here's the deal. Like, the easiest thing is just to offer them cash, and I will give them cash, but it's like, hey, just wanted to see if I could, pay you $30 to use your Snap for 10 to 15 minutes and just send the flyer and message to everyone and see who might repost. And then I show them an example, and I'm like, this is what it would look like, right? Which is the initial message. Hey, I know super random, but my friend Abby, has, her company has some positions available this fall. I'm trying to help her spread the word. Was wondering if you'd be willing to share this on your story and tag Abby for more details. Thank you. Right. So I show them that example of like what the message would say. And then I'm like, all right, awesome. I'm like, it won't take too long at all. I won't open any of your snaps. I'll just send the flyer and message to everyone. And if anyone asks you for details, tell them to swipe on the link or to contact me, and that's it. Because like, they don't work for us. So it's like, they're not gonna be answering questions. You're just like, hey, if anyone asks you info, be like, hey, contact Bree, she'll tell you all about it, or like, check out this link. And that's it. And so it's super simple. And guys, obviously anyone who comes from those people, those are all your PRs as well. And so that's still going to count. All right. And I know that we haven't done a ton, but it's September 13th. I told you guys we have until the end of September. I made it for the whole September, that if you have 5 people that launch out and they hit their first promotion by the end of October, you're winning the 4 days, 3 nights, all expenses paid trip to Cancun. Cool. All of you guys. And so that's an easy way to do that. And also for us to like spread the word. So right now we need help. We need to create more applications right now, and we can't on campus because of this hurricane. And so that's a really big thing that we need to do. And then beyond that, there's when we look at creates, like, what are we doing to create touches, right? Like where people are applying, and that could be online ads, Craigslist ads, like all like national handles, a lot of like the iZip recruiters and all that, but like campus, anyone with Handshake, now national handles Handshake for us. But something we can do, Steph, is like on hand, and they've told me that you can see students, you can see their resumes, you can reach out to people. Like there's a whole database of students, and most of the handshakes let the employers interact with the people who are on there, people who have put their resume on there. So we can look at resumes and reach out and say, hey, I saw your resume on Handshake. We have some opportunities available. I want to see if you had a minute to chat, want to see if you wanted more details about it. Cool. So that's something we can do because Handshake has, yeah. Okay, give me 1 second. So Handshake has a lot of, has that in there. And that's something that they told, like the schools told us, you can message people directly, through Handshake, like you can message students, you can communicate with them. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh, you got my AirPods. Oh, thank you. You got your AirPods, Mr. Kristen. He has yours. So
Ones that you borrowed from me.
here, I haven't used these days. Here, thank you. Can I have it? Okay. All right. So, yeah, Bree, what are you saying?
Oh no, so
Study-
like in my whole, yeah, we have like study room. So I've just been writing like the link on every study board because like we have like four floors. So we have a study room on each floor, except the first one. And I've just been writing the link on all the boards.
Awesome. What else are other ways that we can create touches? So obviously we can get started. We can't do campus right now. We can't do anything like physically on campus. So what are other things, Abby?
So kind of building on the like GroupMe messaging that you're talking about. There's a way, I did it last year, so I don't really remember how to do it, but on your GroupMe account, you can connect that account to whatever college you go to. So like mine is connected to Blinn. So whenever someone creates a group chat under, Blinn College, it's like available for me to join. So, and you don't even like have to be in the class or whatever. So, like an idea that I like just had as you were talking about it was just connecting to your campus and joining every single one, whether or not you have it. And just, using that verbiage that you're talking about, we have student work available, private message me, and kind of creating touches that way.
Cool. So what is like right now, I'd love us all to do something cool. And I'd love to know real quick, just so that we can know what you're doing, because maybe someone else is like, oh, I could do that too. What are 1 or 2 things you could do right now to help us create some applications? We need to create like 100 applications, which would be like, whatever, less than 10 each, like 7 to 10 each. But what is something we can do right now? What is something, 1 or 2 things that you're like, hey, I'm going to do this right now, just like right now. Bree, go ahead.
I have a group chat with like my whole hall that like everyone's like really active in. So I feel like if I send something in there, they're more likely to like actually look at it. Whereas like if they look at it in my story, they're kind of just like clicking through. But like in our group chat, like we are like constantly like conversating. So I mean, I could probably like send a flyer in there and talk about it. Because I mean, I talk about my job a lot here, and people are always like interested in more information. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So Bree, you're gonna do that. Have you already asked people to share your flyer on Snap?
Yeah, I did think I did that like a week ago for
Okay.
that one.
Can you ask your girlfriend if you can use her Snap and do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can start working on that. So, and I would say something like, hey guys, if someone is looking for work this fall, my job, oh my gosh, my planner just got destroyed. Oh, I love your coloring. There you go. So hey guys, if anyone's looking, I'm gonna